Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Reed. I'm the Chief Data Scientist with DDS Analytics. I'm delighted to be with you today and honored to have gotten to work with you, Free-Delay, on this data science project. Let's jump in. First, a quick overview of the discussion today. We broke it down into three categories where you see here, and we will go through all of this in more detail now. First, let's start with the exploratory data analysis. This is where we took the data that you gave us and analyzed it, and in this case we generated some visual presentations of some of the analysis that we've done. First, we'll start with bar charts and we'll note some of the variables we found that were most explanatory and most interesting as it relates to attrition. So first is in the bottom left, the job role attrition breakdown. You can see there's some differences between different job roles, most notably sales reps, human resources, and lab technicians had the highest levels of attrition. And then the bottom right is job involvement. You can see there's a pretty steady rise in the amount of attrition relative to the rating that clients gave on job involvement. And I think it's also worth mentioning this first section pertains to categorical variables, and what that is numbers where there's a finite value. So with job role, there's only a certain number of job roles. Now we'll look at the other two variables that we made note of: job satisfaction, work-life balance. Again, you can see there's higher levels of attrition at those lower ratings. Here's a summary of some of which I touched on, just a little more detail. You can see the attrition levels between the job roles that I mentioned, and also the attrition for those categories where the ratings were 1. Next, we'll move into looking at some of the continuous variables, which continuous variables means there's really an infinite number of figures that could be under this category. So monthly income, for instance, can be anywhere from 0 to infinity. So it's that's why these are called continuous variables. So bottom left, you see the total working years. This is a box plot where the left is the attrition where there's been no attrition, and the right is where there has been attrition. You can see higher working years is associated with less attrition. Similarly, you see that with monthly income, and also you see that with job satisfaction and job level. We also use some statistical measures to try to quantify the relationships between variables and attrition. So for the categorical variables, we use the chi-squared test, and the variables at the bottom, those all had low p values, which evidence a high correlation with attrition. We also use the Pearson correlation for continuous variables. This helped to statistically quantify the correlation between attrition and these continuous variables. This is a summary of some of the correlations that we found in this chart. This also details some of the variables that we created. And the highest of which was this JS. In the description of this, it's a combined ranking of job involvement, job level, and job satisfaction. You can see it has a very high or a very low correlation with attrition, which means as this variable goes up, attrition goes down. We also tested for independence between the variables other than attrition, so we thought this was important to test going into our predictive modeling. So summary points, again, here's a list of the notable variables that we shared earlier, and we will analyze these further. Now we'll jump into the predictive models. The predictive model that we use is a naive Bayes model. It's a classifier model. You can see the description here. The purpose was to create a model that predicts attrition given certain variables. And after doing a lot of tests, we found that total working years and a combination variable of at least one of these variables was the best outcome, and it ended up generating an accuracy of over 72%. We also did a linear regression model. You can see the description here. We used that to predict monthly income and salary given the particular variables. And the outcome here was also favorable. And here are the two variables that we used: total working years and job level. Had an R-squared of 91%, RMSC of 1390, and the p-values were all very low. So in conclusion, some of the key insights that we had, the notable variables related to attrition, the top three we found to be job level, job involvement, job satisfaction. Any ratings of one of these should be noted. We detailed some of the job roles that had the highest levels of attrition, and then also notable variables related to monthly income and salary were total working years and job level. And now recommendations that we have for you to think about as you move forward. We think employees that have a 1 rating for the notable variables that we mentioned and or have minimal work experience, so low working years. We think there should be a discussion of how can you more proactively engage these employees to help try to raise that rating. Also think about recruiting employees with more work experience, especially those in the roles with high attrition. Maybe include in survey ratings the option to include information why behind their ratings to glean more insight. And also note individuals that scores of 1 and maybe seek to incorporate more work interaction with others in their department with higher ratings in those notable variables. So these are really just a quick summary of some of the things we think you should think about going forward. And again, we are honored and delighted to have gotten to work with you and look forward to working with you again in the future. Thank you.